So far during my stay in Vietnam, I've spent time in Da Nang and Hoi An. Both of those places are prime tourist spots. Today, however, I am in the city of Hue, and it feels much different here. It just feels more lived in to me. Don't misunderstand, there are plenty of visitors in Hue, and I'll begin in the Imperial City, which has tons of them. It's a UNESCO World Heritage site that is crammed full of history. Let's get started.
The Imperial City complex is one of the most impressive you will see anywhere. It was constructed for the emperor when Hue was the center of power for Vietnam. This contains lavish temples and palaces, all within an area designed for maximum protection from exterior forces. Traveling into the heart of the site, there is first the defensive citadel, then the Imperial City, and finally, the most secure Purple Forbidden City. Only the emperor and his family could access that inner sanctum. This was recognized as culturally significant by the UNESCO organization in 1993. Now, several million people visit the attraction every year. Only 1 or 2 dozen buildings remain from an estimated 150 that were originally created here. Others disappeared as a result of environmental and human-related factors. Restoration of the site is ongoing.
You would be forgiven for thinking this is much older than it is. Before I did any research, I thought it was ancient. In reality, it dates only to the very early days of the 19th century. Still, I guess, that's over 200 years old.
Specifically, construction commenced here in 1803. Its greatest era of influence lasted until the 1880s and the beginning of the French colonial period. After that, it served a mainly ceremonial purpose until the monarchy fell with the abdication by the final emperor in 1945. The main entrance gate for the Imperial City shows visitors what is in store for them on the inside. This is called the Meridian Gate. There are 4 portals into the compound: east, west, north, and here on the south side. This is the primary access point. The structure here is 2 levels, with openings on the bottom and a more opulent tier up top. From that second story, there are views to the outside beyond the walls and a glimpse of the additional treasures on the interior. This was in addition to the outer wall of the Imperial City in 1833. The first building to which people arrive after entering the gate is one of the most elaborate. This is the Thieu Palace, which translated means Palace of Supreme Harmony. While the gate was added a few decades after the creation of the Imperial City, this palace extends back to the very beginning. It served as the chief ceremonial space and was the site for the coronation of 15 of the dynasty's emperors. The outside has all of the embellishments that you would expect of such a significant palace, including the overlapping roofs that are so prominent in the architecture of the time. It's the interior, however, which is most striking. This is all wood and mostly original. There are a total of 80 pillars, and they are adorned with golden carvings of dragons and clouds. The palace possesses an astonishing look. I won't specifically point out every building and every feature inside the Imperial City. As I mentioned earlier, some of the most extravagant structures are completely gone. There is museum space that talks about what has been lost and explains what still remains. Archaeological work is ongoing in places too, so that researchers will eventually have an even better understanding of this place. There is so much to see inside the perimeter of the Imperial City. Just the interior wall here is more than 1.5 miles in length. In addition to the key structures, there are covered corridors, gardens, and water features. It takes time to see it all.
When I arrived, I had a plan. There were 5 or 6 buildings that I wanted to see. I figured I'd get those, be out of here in under 2 hours. Things inevitably caught my attention though, and now my visit has stretched to almost 3.5 hours.
In fact, that still didn't give me enough time to see it all. When it was nearing time for the attraction to close, I hadn't even gotten to those individual places that I initially had on my list. In one location, there were a group of women playing traditional musical instruments. It added quite a bit to the enjoyment of the space. Even as I explored areas in proximity to where that performance was taking place, I continued to hear the music. It was wonderful seeing this with that soundtrack playing in the background. There was a great deal to keep a person entertained and engaged. This building is the Jian Palace, or pavilion. It's one of the newer structures in the Imperial City, built in the early 1920s. This served as a residential piece on the northern side of the complex. When I stopped in, it was hosting an exhibit called the Odyssey of Vietnamese Ceramics. There were many pieces inside, and most of them were gorgeous and historic. This site is so big that even with hundreds, if not thousands of people around, it didn't necessarily feel crowded. I even found this spot where no one else shared the space with me. It was a little extension of land in the moat around the Imperial City. There were a couple of tiny shrines. It's always cool to discover something that most people overlook. At the very northern port of the Imperial City is this structure. It's called the Sufang Rushi Pavilion. Originally, a guard post consumed this space, but that was raised in the 1920s to make room for this. It is built in the colonial style and is now a cultural center that contains a cafe. It was restored to its earliest state in recent years and reopened to the public in 2024. During the Tet Offensive in 1968, troops from the People's Army of Vietnam and Viet Cong soldiers seized much of the city of Hue. They occupied the Imperial City during that time. It was then that war came to these historic grounds.
During the Vietnam War, or what they call here the American War, U.S. forces were ordered not to bomb or shell the Imperial City. Once fighting intensified, however, those restrictions were lifted. As a result, temples, palaces, and other structures suffered extensive damage.
Now, almost 60 years later, the recovery process from the harm that was done continues. There is one fee to enter the Imperial City and see everything contained within. When I visited, the cost was 200,000 Vietnamese dong, or a little under $8. It's so totally worth that price. There are things to see outside of the ticketed area. The actual Imperial City is surrounded by one moat that you can see here at the Meridian Gate. There's an outer moat, however, and protective walls that encase the entire citadel. That moat is roughly 10,000 meters in length. 2-meter thick walls rise 6 meters or 20 feet. There were, and still are, 10 gates that provide access through those outer defenses. On the southern end, not far from the Perfume River, it's possible to explore a section of those defenses. The gigantic Vietnamese flag atop this portion of the wall can be seen from all around. Many people probably come to Hue, go to the Imperial City, and end their exploration there. That's understandable, as that is a lot. A couple of other historic sites, though, are worthy of a little time. Toward the west, away from the city center, about 5 kilometers from the citadel, is the Tien Mo Temple. Translated, that means the Temple of the Celestial Lady. The 7-tiered pagoda is essentially an unofficial symbol of Hue.
I debated about whether to come here. It's a 2-mile walk out of town and of course another 2 miles back, but I think it's worth it. It's more than just a couple of structures. It's an entire complex, essentially a park built on peace and tranquility.
This site was initially established early in the 17th century. It was simple at first and grew to include the grounds and an entire complex of other buildings over time. Damage was incurred during a cyclone early in the 20th century, and work was needed to restore this to what is seen today. A fair number of people visit this compound, some simply as tourists, and others who come to worship and meditate. I was told that the trip to the pagoda is not complete without stopping by to sample what these vendors are selling. For 10,000 dong, or around 40 cents, I got a big cup of what is in essence tofu pudding.
It's a pretty simple concoction. It's just tofu and sugar, I wasn't expecting it to be warm, and it's not overly sweet. It's not my favorite, but it's not bad.
In addition to the tofu and sugar, this contains ginger and a slight touch of lemon. I think I would have liked it better if it was cold. Also, just outside of the temple, there is a small market. There, it is possible to buy souvenirs, clothing, and other treats. I was fortunate to stay right beside this historic site. I would never have found it otherwise. It is the Shiji Esplanade, situated in the western part of the city. This is a ceremonial platform where leaders performed rituals honoring the earth god and the rice god. It was built in the early 19th century and contains soil from every province in Vietnam. Preservationists are investigating the notion of making this a more prominent cultural attraction.
If plans go forward as expected, it will be good news and bad news. The good news, of course, is that a historic site will be enhanced and made available for the public to see. The bad news is that the owners of my homestay will have to give up their home and move somewhere else.
I did not hear a timeline as to when things might move forward here. This was the place that I stayed during my visit to the city. It's called the Purple Way Homestay. The building is relatively new and modern, with the nicest family living downstairs and guest rooms located on the second floor. This is one of those accommodations that made me wish I was there for more than a couple of nights. I was fascinated by the neighborhood that surrounded the homestay. It is a residential area with all sorts of businesses sprinkled throughout. I spent time just walking through the streets, seeing how real people lived. It was far greater than a normal tourist experience. My host directed me to this local restaurant. I was able to order a sample platter for one person. It consisted of 4 distinct food items that are traditionally eaten in Hue. I dug into ban lak and ban nam, which were bites wrapped in banana leaves, and there were 2 other specialties, ban bao and ban ram. It was a large culinary primer of local dishes, all for under $2.
What a great opportunity this platter was to try 4 different cakes, as they call them here, that are associated with Hue. 2 of them were okay, the other 2 were exceptionally good, and my favorite was the bao cake.
I love being able to see the staff putting together what I think were the ban nam packages. That is shrimp, pork, and tapioca inside of banana leaves. There is so much food to try at one of Hue's most popular places. This is the Dang Ba Market, which is located near the north bank of the Perfume River to the east of the Citadel. When I walked through, the sights and smells of prepared food grabbed the attention of anyone within the area. There are other products available from vendors in this space, but for me, the items being created in these stalls stood out far above the rest. I did not partake of anything, but the look alone convinced me that this would be prime territory for snagging a meal.
This is the early market. I'm told that vendors show up here around 3 in the morning to get things ready for the day's sale. It closes down at 7 in the evening.
This shopping center is well over 100 years old, and it is extensive. It covers over 500,000 square feet. I went looking for a night market while in Hue. This is what I found on a Tuesday evening.
And this is the night market. Okay, I got some bad information. The main walking street is apparently open only on the weekends. Google says that there's a walking street here that should be open every night. That is obviously not the case.
Not everything goes perfectly when attempting to discover a new town. The trip to this part of the city was not a loss. I was able to witness the light show at the historic Trong Bridge. It appears as though each night the bridge is illuminated with different colors, cycling through to shine on different portions of the span. The result is stunning. This bridge is impressive day or night. It is 400 meters long, connecting the 2 sides of Hue over the Perfume River. The steel girders from which it is made might remind you of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, and for good reason. The same company produced both. I've mentioned the Perfume River numerous times. It is a major feature here, lying between the old part of town to the north and the more modern city to the south. The flow drains one of the wettest parts of Vietnam. but its length is a surprisingly short 19 miles. On both banks of the river are splendid walkways stretching for several kilometers. I ambled along for quite a good distance on both the north and the south banks. This little park was especially enjoyable. The crescent-shaped boardwalk allowed me to get right on top of the water. This was along the north bank. Across the water was another wooden path, inches above the surface of the channel. I liked how the city was connected to the river through the access provided by the trails. It was along the south bank of the Perfume that I found several buildings dedicated to the arts. My favorite was this place, which serves as a traditional crafts house. All sorts of items are on display here. The range is from Wei lanterns to conical hats to kites.
I find this place to be particularly appealing, not just because I get to see some local crafts, but in 4 or 5 instances, I'm able to see the artists at work. Oh yeah, and there's no cost to get in.
I spent more than a half hour here watching as craftspeople created the various products. As much as I could tell, they used traditional techniques to bring the items from raw materials to finished artifacts. It was a series of moments to be transported back to an earlier time. Everything being made was available for sale. Just next door, another couple of buildings maintained the artistic vibe. I went inside each, but I found the photography covering the grounds to be the most intriguing element. The images were, in many cases, astounding. They depicted scenes that were obviously found around Wei, and I presume that the photographers were local as well. I am happy that I found this small pocket of the arts, which is along Lo Street, one of the most attractive avenues in the city. Coffee shops abound through Wei, as in every other place that I visited in Vietnam. I went to a cafe that specializes in coffee and chocolate. It's called Choco House.
Originally, I was thinking about getting an egg coffee this morning. Then I learned that egg coffee was created in Hanoi, while salt coffee was developed right here in Wei. Always go local.
Salt coffee has become one of my favorites, and it was interesting to try some in the city in which it was developed. Just down the street was the Cham Craft Beer and Whiskey. I actually stopped in here a couple of times to try some beer that is brewed in Vietnam. The tap house had plenty of options.
This place has just about the best beer selection that I've seen so far in Vietnam. The one I'm having today is called Loose Rivet. It's a New England IPA from Heart of Darkness Brewing. Quite tasty.
Full disclosure, both the craft beer bar and the Choco House are owned by the couple that provided my homestay. Wei is an amazing place, from the Imperial City to the Perfume River to the modern parts. I was smitten from the moment that I arrived. It's a place that visitors should check out if they are along the central coast of Vietnam.
Often when I go to a place for just a couple of days, that is enough time to experience what it has to offer. I don't think that's the case for Wei. If I spent a week here, I believe I would still be discovering new features that make this place special. Wei was a key location in the Vietnam or American War. While here, I took a tour of some of the sites in this region that played a major role in that conflict. I'll have that for you next time, here on Old, Alone, and Far From Home.